13th in the year 2025. Man, this year just really flew by really quick. I wasn't even sure what month it was a few days ago. I thought it was still September. But man, oh man, this month is passing by real quick. Anyway, we have a beautiful morning here in northern Thailand, and you have some nice clouds in the sky, squirrels climbing on the telephone wires and stuff like that. The temperature's in the around 75 or so. And it's just a real nice morning for exercise. And that's what we're going to do. We're going to keep on going for about 4 kilometers, almost 5. I don't always film when I do the dawn walk anymore. And one of the reasons for that is that I become more, I should say, like observant or aware that people, and I knew this from before the internet. And people don't like to have cameras pointed in their faces or anything like that. And then I walk on roads like this where there are very few people, and so I don't feel like I'm really like getting in anybody's business or anything like that. But like if I do it every single day, and I'm going through like the markets, it's going through the markets and stuff like that. It's kind of a little bit intrusive, I would say, in my opinion. Now, that's just my opinion. That's a little bit, maybe people don't care. But, I've been around long enough to realize, people don't necessarily want to be filmed or something like that. You just really should, in my opinion, you shouldn't do it. Now, I don't know what the laws are. I know that a lot of times you see on the internet, people going and just like, oh, I can film here. It's a public space and stuff like that, And people start getting, really upset. I'm not in the business of trying to upset people. So it's not that important to me. And or anything like that. So I just try to photograph or film my personal journey through life. And everything else is a bonus, basically. I started this sort of vlogging while walking exercise thing, I guess maybe about 2 months ago, but I had to take 3 weeks off because I had the flu and I couldn't go out. I really had difficulty just basically functioning for part of that period, and I just didn't want to go out with a stuffed up nose and all that. So maybe it was 2 weeks. It wasn't 3 weeks, but yeah. So that's basically what I've been doing so far. Yesterday we had a nice sort of a relaxing day. It was Monday. And I made some pizzas. I made spinach pies and bagels. I was going to film the bagels because, I know in the New Jersey or New York, if you want to get a bagel with cream cheese, it's like $5. But in reality, it should cost you about, 50 cents less to make a bagel and even add cream cheese. So that's the whole thing with these rising costs of everything these days. People need to, or should, try to cook at home or cut costs and stuff like that. And making bagels is so easy. It really is, if you have a kitchen. I know not everybody has a kitchen, so it's a little bit difficult. That's the poor man's paradox. because I've lived it. I know what it's like, you know, where you can only afford a room to stay in, but you have no kitchen, you have no, pretty much nothing. Maybe the place that I stayed at was a was a 5x8. You know, I was paying $600 a month to stay there in Brooklyn, and had no window, no heat, no electric, no bed. I slept on the floor for like a year, using my jacket and maybe some clothes or a suitcase or something like that as a pillow. Totally sucked. It was like really, really brutal. And so like what I would do is I would try to spend as little time as possible there. So what I would do is I would like shower, shave, you know, sleep, get up, get out. Or in a reverse order though, right? Sleep, shower, shave, get out. And if it meant that I could work 2 jobs or 2 shifts, 16 hours a day, I would gladly do it rather than stay in that fucking room. Because staying in that room is inhuman. You know, it's a prison cell. You know, except I have the world's greatest backyard, which means I can walk out and go do anything. Well, not anything I feel like. Or anything I feel like, whatever consequences, but within the laws of society. So, yeah, that was my main thing about staying in what's called an SRO, a single room occupancy. It's not even a room. It's like, I've seen worse ones. I mean, I had friends in the early 90s who were staying in places that were not even 8x5. And we're talking about like probably like 4x6, you know, literally. And the walls weren't even real walls. They were chicken wire and stuff like that. Totally brutal, disgusting conditions for a human being to be staying in. And naturally, we had to do our best to get our friends out of those situations and into better living conditions as best we could. I mean, as best I could as a young man, you know, with my almost zero resources, but just to be there as a friend and help out, and you know, and everything. It worked, you know, so everything turned out for the best, or as good as it did, you know. But anyway, it is a beautiful morning, and we did have a storm last night, or a storm earlier yesterday. I don't think, well, here we could take a look at the clouds over there over the mountain and see that hold on a second, let me put my glasses on and see that it doesn't look, I mean, it does not look like storm, but it could rain. I don't know. Let's see if it rains. You know. Anyway. So I got an interesting answer today to the question that I had about the theory of relativity in physics. Right? And what my question was this, because I don't think I've ever heard about this, but like they talk about like time dilation and the ability to travel through time and stuff like that. But like whenever I heard this time travel thing and traveling at the speed of light, one of the things I didn't hear was that you have to decelerate to get to, like, let's say you travel at the speed of light away from Earth, right? And then you like do a loop, turn back around, right? And then when you're approaching Earth, you're going to have to slow down, right? Because you can't just keep going at the speed of light. Otherwise, you would just be like, keep passing by. You would have to slow down. And I was curious about that, as I had never heard anybody talk about that before. But I looked it up on Gemini, and the physicists have done calculations taking that into consideration. So that was kind of interesting. Anyway, run son. Let's see what's on the menu for today. So, what's on the menu for today? On the menu for today, Tuesday. All right, is finish the exercise. Then I got to go back and take out all the garbage. It's garbage day. I got to take my pal to the bank to do some transaction, and then he might want to go somewhere else from the bank, but I'm not sure. We'll see how that. We'll play that by ear. But then get back to the house. When I get back to the house, I guess do a little bit of cleaning up around and stuff like that. That just cleaning up though, I count that in the garbage department. Cleaning up. So garbage and cleaning up. And then after that, check up on all the animals. And after that, what else? I don't know. Play some chess on the computer. Maybe watch a movie. I get sick of watching movies, though. To tell you honestly, I don't even watch movies. I just watch YouTube clips and stuff like that. So, that's pretty much all I do with that. But maybe a movie is a good idea. That could be kind of interesting. And let's see, what else? I don't know. Find something else to cook. Study some languages. I feel like studying more Thai, I've learned quite a bit of Thai at least I feel I have. But I still have so much more to learn. But I haven't really been trying to improve the amount of Thai that I already speak. So I guess I'll do maybe an hour study the Thai language for an hour. And after that, I don't know. I'll have to keep myself busy somehow, But it does look nice. I kind of wish, I like that feeling of traveling, I kind of wish I had some place to travel to, It gives, when you're traveling, you have a sense of purpose, Even though, it may be, not very important. But when you travel, like if you're driving from one place to another, you have a purpose. You have to get from point A to point B, right? And that's the same thing with any kind of studying and stuff like that. So I guess I'll continue on the best I can. I'd like to improve myself somehow today, improve my state of knowledge somehow, or interactions, or something like that. I'm feeling quite good today. But I don't know. Got to get the weight down. I'm down to 111 kilo. So that's in pounds. That's multiplied by 2.2. So 222 plus 2 plus 22 is 240. 240 and a half, 240 pounds. right? Isn't that what it is? I need to be I need to be 190 pounds. That's where I need to be, which means I'm about 50 pounds overweight, you know. But maybe I'm not. I don't know. I'm 6'2", so I don't know what my ideal weight is for being 55 years old. I know I can look it up on the internet and they'll tell me. So I will definitely check it out and see what that says. So, but I'm gonna guess it's around 190 pounds. Could be 185. You know, I haven't been 200 pounds in a long time. I haven't been 200 pounds since before I came to Thailand. When I came to Thailand, for the first year that I was in Thailand, I was about 190 pounds. But then I gradually started packing the weight on as I passed the over 30 years old, and I was working more we're talking about 1998, 1999. I was working as a digital nomad, one of the very first digital nomads that were out there. You know, I don't know if there were, I really don't even know if there were any other digital nomads back in 1997, 98, but I know I was, and that's pretty cool. But that required a lot of sitting in front of the computer, you know, long hours, because the opportunity at that time was just basically too good, to the point where you wanted to get as many hours in as possible because you weren't sure how long that period would last. And it did end. It ended about 5 years later with the EULA, E-U-L-A, the IUGEA, no, that's the IUGEA, excuse me, the Internet Gaming Exclusion Act, signed by George Bush Jr., who closed down all these sites internationally, who are available internationally for what they consider gambling. And that didn't happen right away, but by 2008, you know, nearly 10 years later, from being a digital nomad to just being a nomad, my skill set, I had not improved my skill set to do other things during that period of time, and I hadn't invested any money. I just, you know, sort of was just partying nonstop, which was fantastic. I had a lot of good time, but now that I look back at it, I realize it was a waste of fucking time. And, you know, it really was. I mean, I got like some instant pleasure, you know, a lot of girls and drinking, hanging out with the guys and stuff like that. But as far as like improving myself, not too much improving myself. Although at the time I was learning a lot of Thai back then. But then I learned enough where I kind of stopped, you know, and I could communicate, got to a level where I could communicate what I wanted, you know, what I wanted to communicate, pretty much, you know. So yeah, basically, some pretty wild times, man, you know. How old was I? From my 30s to 40s. And then my 40s to 50s were spent farming rice with my wife. And we moved out of the town we were in. We were living in Pattaya at the time, from my 30s to 40s. And 40s to 50s, we were living in the north of Thailand. We were farming rice, building a house, just really living a really much slower pace of life. But back then. I was still drinking at the house back then. I don't drink anymore. And I would give my piece of advice, if anybody wanted me to give a piece of advice, would be drinking's not worth it. You know, I mean, maybe if you could do it occasionally and stuff like that, but when you make it your social structure, you're totally screwing yourself over. Hold on a second. I'm just gonna tie my shoe here real quick. Oh boy, what was that? What happened here? Cancel. I hit some button. Oh, there we go. I hit some button where I hit the camera button. Man, by accident, we tied a shoe. Anyway, that was an accident. So that's the thing, you know. I would like to spend a little bit of time talking about that because it's very important. And I think that like if I can give a message out there, and if like one person, you know, at least just one person gets the message out there, because I know what I'm talking about, and I'm telling you, it's not worth it. You know, alcohol is a poison, which consumed in very moderate quantities, it's not a poison, and can be a social not inhibitor, but it could be like make it more socially sociable. But the flip side of that is that once you make drinking as a daily routine in your life, now it starts to get to the point of addiction, and you don't even know it. And you could wake up in like 10, 20 years and not realize that you were addicted and your whole life was revolving around it. And it's not good. It's definitely not good. It stops your learning. It stops your socializing. It makes you make bad decisions. You lose all kinds of money. You know, it's just not worth it. Instead of doing that for 10, 20 years, instead of doing that for 10 or 20 years, I would strongly suggest exercise, sport, learning, meeting like-minded people who are in that, you know, into that, also sports, learning, recreation, and stuff like that, you know, the arts, you know, I mean, there's so much to do, but you could spend 10, 20 years drinking, you won't be able to do any of that. You'll lose relationships, you know, you lose money. It's just a negative situation all around. So, that being said, I don't know, people don't really want to hear it sometimes, but it's important to get a message out there sometimes, because when I was drinking, all those messages, I heard them every single time I was being told them, and eventually it stuck with me. And I'm very, very happy that that's the case. You know, my life is like immeasurably better, and my brain is I'm seeing powers in my brain I haven't seen since my 20s. Isn't that nuts? Anyway, that's just the good message. Well, at least I think it's a good message. The good message to get out there. You know, don't waste your life. And that's time is your most valuable asset. Forget about money. Your time is more valuable than anything you have, because it's extremely limited, you know. So that's why I always say, use your time wisely, because you only get so much. Cherish the moments, don't miss your moment, you know. You know, days fly by. I know when you're younger, it seems like they take longer to fly by, but believe you me, they fly by. And one day you'll wake up, and you don't want to wake up with like too many regrets or anything like that. And if you just, do the normal things, and I know it might not seem like it's normal, because if you're somebody who drinks or partakes in other chemical substances like marijuana or whatever, you think the people around you do it, and all of a sudden you get to the mindset you think that everybody does it. The fact is, that's not true. That's just the microcosm. That's just the microcosm that you build for yourself. And especially like young people. I always say the most dangerous points in a person's life is probably when they're from 12 to 17. I would say that those are the most dangerous 5 years of your life, because your brain is just starting to like grow. You want it to grow good. You don't want to hurt your development and stuff like that. Because between the ages of 12 and 17, a lot of people don't make it because they do stupid things. They don't know shit. They think they know shit. They think they're growing up. They think they're a man, and they're not a man or a woman or anything. They're still a kid. And I wish I was. Hey, if I could be 12 years old right now, go back in time, I would give it another shot. But fact is, I can't. So I have to do the best that I can with the time that I have. And that's exactly what I'm doing, You don't want to miss your moment, waste your shot, or waste your life, And that's important, Because you are important too. Another thing is that I don't mention a lot, but a lot of people seem to think that they're not important, or they're too important, right? But the fact is that as far as society goes, you are important. Society that you're in wants you to do well, right? Because, if you're doing well, the society is doing well. But if, you're not doing well and society is being taken down by you, and then God forbid you have a broken society or dysfunctional society, that could happen, and that's something you really should strive to avoid. But it starts with you and yourself and your desire to make yourself as good a human being as you can. And I will also say another thing, is that this fad of nose rings and tattoos and stuff like that or whatever, I know I have tattoos. I have pierced ears. But it's really self-mutilation. You're by nature, you were designed to have a beautiful body. Everybody's body is designed by nature in the natural process, and it's such a beautiful thing. And that's what we should try to hold on to, So I would definitely say, don't, if you're thinking about getting a tattoo or a nose ring or ear piercings and stuff like that, think about it a little bit, Oh, look at this poor dog is like disabled. I hope it didn't happen just this morning, but I doubt it. It looks like it's been that way for a while. Poor guy. All right, well, at least he's still alive. And he has people looking after him. So, right here is a Thai Wat, W-A-T, which means temple for Buddhism. And these things are always really beautiful. If you can see inside, we'll go across the street and get a closer look and take a look. Because this is one of the reasons to come to Thailand. is to see these things, because they just don't have them in the intricacy that they have them in the West. And you just look at that, So that's super beautiful. Anyway, there you have it. All right, we're more than halfway done with our walk, which is nice. We're gonna cross over to the other side. I don't want to spend any money at the market, but sometimes when I walk through the market, I feel obligated to spend a few dollars or something like that, just walking through or whatever. But I don't need anything from there, so I'm not going to. And we're back on the back side of the road. This would qualify as sort of like a back road, a little bit. You see on the side over here, you have the canal, and the canal. You see all these houses with balconies that go looking over the canal. Now, part of that, most of that now is for, the aesthetics and stuff like that. But back in the day, before we had paved roads here, or they had paved roads, whoever had paved roads here, the canal was here, and people would go up and down in boats selling food, like fruits and vegetables, meat and whatever, They'd go up and down the canal doing that, because the canal was here long before the paved roads, which that's kind of interesting in itself. I kind of want to head back out to the main road again, so that's what we're going to do. And we're going to take a chance, we're going to do something new and walk down a road we haven't seen before or been down before. And we'll do that, get out to the main road and start heading up. Once we get to the main road, I'm probably going to shut down the stream, because I've been walking and talking for how long now? Let's see here. Well, a good 30 minutes, And that's a good exercise for me. And also, I thank you all for tuning in, checking it out, whatever. If you want to see something nice, you don't want to concentrate on the negativity that's out there on this YouTube, because believe you me, I don't even have to say it, but most of it's like murder mysteries and beatdowns and violence and sex like that. It's funny, it's strange, they really crack down on the sort of the sexual nature of some videos they used to have, 10 years ago or something like that. But it seems to me that violence is okay, which doesn't seem to add up to me. But, and I don't mean like sex, I don't mean like pornography or anything like that, but I mean, but I don't know, whatever. You choose to watch what you watch, Nobody's there to babysit anybody. So, anyway, just keeping it positive. Life is good. It's Tuesday morning. It's the 14th of this lovely year of 2025 in October. And it's lovely 75 degrees. And we made it out to the main road again. So I just want to thank everybody for tuning in at this moment, and say, wherever you are on this planet, I hope that you're having a good morning or a good evening or a good night, and know that you are loved and needed in society. And we're all here hoping for everybody to do the best. They want me to do the best. I know people don't want me to be bad, so pass the message on, pay it forward.